So, RX friends, are you guys ready for a live show with Thu and Saley? Alright, let's go guys.
Thank you, Kate.
Thanks guys, and welcome to the Hey RX Friends We Got This podcast, where we share our thoughts on the pharmacy profession, experiences as healthcare providers, and explore our identities as two women of color going after it all.
As we share our stories, we hope you laugh, maybe cry, and feel inspired as you get to know us. Because at the end of the day, we got this.
We got them. Hi. I think some of you guys recognize the intro a little bit.
If you listen to us regularly, you know that this is our ongoing script. Always and always, we open with this every single time. Thank you. There's so much going on at mid-year tonight. And I can't believe you all chose to be here at this event. I cannot express how grateful I am that you chose to spend the time tonight with us, because there are too many things you could have chosen to do, but you chose us. We appreciate that.
And this is really something that we've been working towards for a while now, and it's wild for us to be able to do something like this. I mean, I would not have thought that we would be here a year ago, and so, you know what? Here we are. My question is, we're here. Well, what are we going to be talking about today, Saley?
Oh my gosh.
Because, not gonna lie, okay, I'm gonna be a little bit honest here.
A little bit.
We struggled a little bit with advertising for this event because we're like, hey, the show is Hey RX Friends Live, but really, the topic that we're going to be talking about today, which some of you may not have realized, is 10 and 10 lessons that we've learned in 10 years.
I know.
At pharmacy.
At pharmacy. And I think we picked this topic for our first, what we hope is our first live event, because there's a lot of conversations and a lot of sessions that happen at mid-year, and there's very little that we feel happens in a very informal way. So we hope the conversation tonight is engaging and helping.
You just got really comfortable in your seat.
Oh, I did.
Real informal tonight, babies.
The nerves are wearing off and I'm becoming really calm. I'm super nervous, but
no, before we do all of that.
Yes, of course.
If you're watching on YouTube,
yes,
please like the video, subscribe, and share with us your thoughts on the pharmacy profession below in the comment section.
Yes.
Let us know what other topics you'd like for us to talk about. And if you're listening to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, please rate and write a review. Let the people know why we are the best companions when you're walking your dog or doing the dishes.
I'm doing the most mundane tasks of life. But everyone laughs at me when I say this, but I am beyond the point of asking nicely. We are straight up begging. Like, share, subscribe. I'm at your feet, on my belly, just begging for your like, subscriptions, and share.
Do it now.
Do it now.
Yeah.
But it helps us become discoverable by other people, the more likes and reviews we get. So we appreciate it.
Listen, this is a 1 hour show, so I think we should just jump right into it, because 10 years is a long time.
10 years is a long time.
We're going to start with 2014, which is, I'm going to start with 2014. And this is the year where I applied for residency and didn't match the first time, luckily. And I tell this story quite a bit. But I want to make sure that for those of you who are going through the showcase and are wanting a residency, we've talked about this many times. The chances of you not matching is there, unfortunately.
It's real.
What I did was I got right back up. I found the people who are willing to support me. I did the whole thing of, I really hustled. This was probably my first entrepreneur experience of really hustling to get a PGY1 when I didn't match. Yeah. So for those of you who haven't heard the story, I applied to 8 programs, interviewed at 2, and then matched at 0. And I would say it was 3 months out of graduation, or 3 months before graduation, and I'm like, okay, well, I guess this is it. And I was playing it so small, you guys, right before I didn't match, and as soon as I found that rejection, I immediately just went into hustle mode, and I called up every single one, every RPD that I could talk to, and it was like, are you guys available? Like, is there a position open? And that was a big difference between playing it small and really like going after what you want.
100%.
So if that is something that you're interested in, my story, I don't want to dwell too much into it because we have a lot to cover. The episode is available on YouTube.
I love, the reason why I connected with Thu in particular was because of this, because I am so inspired by people who get back up when life knocks them down. And I learned, well, people were telling me that our online voices really match, and that I should talk to her. And then I talked to her, and it was like, what? This girl's like so awesome.
Yeah.
But she talks about her phase 2 journey and like this super passive. If you've talked to anyone who went for residency and didn't match and had to do phase 2, you know it takes a lot of mental fortitude, a lot of courage and resilience and perseverance to overcome failure of that magnitude. It is public, it carries a lot of shame with it. So I admire that part of your journey very, very much, and how you just picked yourself back up and was like, I want this and I'm gonna do what it takes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
very cool.
We have a lot of episode on shame and failure.
We
so
do.
Check it out.
We do.
2015.
Yeah, because that's my journey. In 2015, I was now a final year student pharmacist in a 3-year program and had this incredibly public encounter with failure. Our school passes 85. It's not 84.3, it's 85.
Pass fail.
Pass fail, pharmacy school. And I'd taken an exam 3 times and could not secure an 85, and was facing the real possibility of not graduating on time. I'd done so much work to prepare myself for residency prospects and anything I wanted. And now I was being told that I was looking at a December graduation. I was humiliated. I was very ashamed. And I was looking at an entire semester where I had to come and face that classroom where everyone knew that I didn't pass my extended learning module and that I would be graduating late. And I dealt with some open criticism where some people were just saying like, well, this is what she needed to get knocked off her high horse because she thinks she's all that. And having to navigate those types of emotions and feelings. And there was a change in policy at the school where I ended up going from my, oh, and by the way, I didn't fail the exam with like a 70-something. I had an 84 and was like looking at graduating late with an 84 where no one could understand it. But the lesson I learned through that process, because that spring semester, every exam I took that spring semester, I got like a 95 or better. It was almost like I was trying to prove something to myself that I think had been true all along. I'd never struggled with academics, but I failed, and that was real, something that I did. So resilience, I think in that moment, and building and having that courage to just be like, I'm gonna face these classmates no matter what, and I know what I'm capable of, and I'm gonna continue. If it's gonna be a December graduation, that's what it's gonna be, but I'm gonna be okay. So that's, I think, like my first lesson for the first 10 years. It's just like, you have got to have some type of fortitude inside of you to want to keep going, even when the shame weighs like a ton.
Mm. Okay, well then, you know, and the reason why I am skipping this, because we've already talked about this.
What?
2014, 2015. We've talked about the failure and the shame, so please check out that episode.
Yeah, go back and listen.
Go back and listen, guys. But let's talk about 2016, because this is my struggles, the struggles of the first job. And the lesson for me is give yourself more grace, because I mean, I learned so much in that first year of clinical practice. I did a PGY1 and a PGY2, and I still struggled.
Yeah.
And I say give yourself some grace, because if you don't, you might quit.
Yeah.
And so the reason why I didn't quit was because of that. The things that they do not teach you
At all.
the things that they do not teach you in residency or anything like that is the work culture.
Yeah.
Like, you don't know that you're going to walk into a work culture and you're supposed to do, you're supposed to interact this way with one provider, but then like a different way with another provider. You didn't know that there was like certain alerts and stuff that the people who've been there for a long time don't even address anymore. Like, I remember calling up an infectious disease doctor and saying, hey, we don't use this antibiotic anymore, we use this one, can we switch it over? Like, we did a whole thing of switching antibiotics. And then I talked to another pharmacist and they're like, oh, well, we don't really do that alert anymore. Like, how would I know? There is one lesson that there is one story that I told on the podcast where the same infectious disease doctor got really angry at me. And basically, it severed our relationship. And this was the first 6 months of me working there. And again, I messed up on. He was talking about one patient, and I was looking at a different chart, and he got too upset with me.
I hate the wrong patient.
And it wasn't even, listen, it wasn't even a clinical mistake. It was just, it was just a
There's a lot going on. It happens for too many reasons. Like, even as a resident, it happened to me all the time.
That relationship severed for a while. Yeah. So, like, and there was only a moment where I went into my office and, did I cry? I don't remember. I might have. But I blocked it out, you guys. But, like, honestly, like, there will be moments like that. And I did a PQI1 and a PQI2. You understand? Like, the struggle of doing this is there. And so I had to give myself enough grace to be like, let's just get back up and try again. Because, and eventually our relationship, me and the infectious disease doctor did somewhat mend. I mean, I was not his favorite pharmacist. But it still was a workable relationship, and I was still able to just bypass all of that and become a confident pharmacist now. So, yeah, that happened.
First job is
the first
hard.
job was rough.
Oh
and
God.
also, something that people don't tell you, I'm glad that you guys are here because you're learning all the dirty secrets, is that there's this thing where if you're starting out, if you're new, you kind of have to prove yourself a little bit.
Oh yeah.
You prove yourself to the nurses, you prove yourself to the doctors.
Your own department, the other pharmacists
you
work with.
It's like sometimes they like double check your work just to catch your mistake.
I know. It's really bad.
And so like you have to give yourself grace to be like, whatever, it's okay.
Oh, I wasn't aware of that. Thank you so much for bringing it to my attention. Next. But if you dwell on everything that's brought to your attention, first of all, it could stunt your growth because then you start finding yourself not wanting to do more. You're scared. Like, you become very scared, and you don't want that. Like, if you have a great supervisor that you're working with as a new pharmacist, fresh out of residency, they can pick up on that, and they will realize, like, you just need a little bit of mentorship and building your confidence. But becoming a confident pharmacist, it's a process. But I think we all think that once we graduate from residency, the certificate comes with confidence. It doesn't. Sorry.
Yeah. Your confidence goes right back down to the bottom, and you have to build that back up.
Build back up.
Yeah, well,
that's very true.
Give yourself grace.
Give yourself grace.
Okay, next.
I think for 2017, I'm fresh out of residency, and I have this boyfriend, and he's like...
Wait, where did you meet your boyfriend?
Oh my God, in pharmacy school, stop. My boyfriend in pharmacy school.
Now your husband.
Now my husband, right? But he was like, just still on his, I was like, okay, it's time to apply for residency. What's going on with this situation? I'm not getting a clear sense of where we're going, so I'm like, okay, it's doing me season, I'm gonna apply all over. And then when he noticed that I was getting interviews as far as Orlando, he got like a little nervous, like, Orlando? Like, you're gonna move to Orlando? I'm like, well, we're not really having the conversations that should make me think about not going really, really far. So
what is this lesson though?
After graduating from residency, we're still just like, I'm going to Baltimore, he's coming to Philly, and I'm still not getting like any sign of a commitment. I made a decision, and I was like, I think until like I know for sure where this relationship is going, I'm going to invest in my career and chase my opportunities.
Okay.
And what that was an opportunity to work in as a pharmacist in a small town, medically underserved, underrepresented, the people, my people, would be, and I took that opportunity, except like 8 months later, he proposed.
Okay, but that's what I was not sure, because I didn't know if you were giving like relationship advice or
It's not relationship advice. Like,
was it an ultimatum?
it wasn't an ultimatum at all. It was just kind of like,
But that's actually what's really, because I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that is facing the same thing. So what would you tell people to do?
I think
you?
I think communicating clearly, because that's what I always made sure I did that. I communicated very clearly, and it was just like, I'm taking a job that is hour and 40 minutes away from Baltimore, and I'm not doing it because I'm not serious about us. I'm doing it because I am serious about my career. Like, I give up a lot to go to pharmacy school. Like, there was a whole thing with that. Episode 2 tells you all I did. But I give up a lot to go to pharmacy school, and I didn't want to now, after residency, make choices that were for another person when I wasn't feeling like that person was making choices with me in mind. And I think like that's my lesson in that. It's just communicating clearly. And now we're married. All of the career decisions I make, we literally we debate it, because it impacts him, it impacts me, and it impacts our son now. So
yeah, but now there's a commitment.
There's
you
a
don't have to worry about.
Oh, there's a real commitment. Now he's in jail.
He's in jail.
He's married to me. That's jail.
Oh,
That's life jail. That is life prison sentence.
Okay.
He'll tell you that.
Is that another lesson?
No.
Marriage is jail.
Marriage is jail.
Don't do it. Well, 2018 for me, I learned that there's a lot more to life than pharmacy and career. So is that the opposite of you?
It's a little different now, yeah. We're learning different lessons at different points, which is great.
Yeah, that's true.
Great.
But this was when I was, getting to kind of understand my role and building confidence at work. And so what I would say is that you guys don't forget who you are outside of pharmacy, because I don't think that I think that pharmacy can become too much. And if you don't have anything else to hold on to outside of that, it might be too detrimental to your mental health.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, I don't know, I go home and I guess it's a lot of that self-care,
Yes.
right? And learning who you are outside of your profession, because once you start to feel a little stuck, or once you start to feel a little bit worn down, then you may not have anything to go back to.
Yeah, and I say it a lot. I say it on the show all the time, but pharmacy is what I do. It's not who I am. I hold on to that so dearly, because it goes to the heart of what Thu was talking about. For some people, their existence in the profession of pharmacy literally is their identity. I want to caution you against that, because what's going to happen is the first time you experience career failure, you're done. You don't even know
Well, it's so scary to tie your identity to your career or just to one thing.
One thing, yeah.
It is very scary. And we're going to talk about even maybe some more career stuff later on. So you can see that I'm slowly kind of releasing myself from this pharmacy identity. What? What are you laughing?
What I'm saying is that. It's your nonverbal.
You can also see I went to ASHP and I'm not going to the conference.
I know.
And that's a choice.
It is. It is.
That you'll learn why. But
yes.
choice.
You'll learn why.
Later on in the years.
Yep.
2019, we're
oh
moving through
my
these
gosh.
fast. Maybe we can slow down a little bit.
Oh,
I'm keeping up with the time.
I'm
the producer. I'm always
it's social hour.
we've got 10 minutes.
We can
Okay,
engage.
go ahead.
For 2019, for me, this is where I really started to break out. I started leading other pharmacists. I started learning that I am capable of standing up and being the person in the room at the table. We talked about the struggles I had before with finding my voice, but I've gone through these different phases professionally where at first I really didn't even know what my voice was. And then I discovered what my voice was, but then was deathly afraid of using it because it's not the nicest tone. I deliver a little too directly on certain things at work. And I started paying for that transparency and started paying for that authenticity but over time, I became very comfortable paying that price. But leading other pharmacists, and the lesson I learned in that was that I'm leading a group of pharmacists, but there's support. And investing in my professional development, I've had the privilege of finding that in professional organizations. Who doesn't share this sentiment? But I've had the very good luck of having a great experience in professional organizations and finding mentors and finding other people that modeled really great things for me and offered to kind of bring me in and show me and teach me how to lead other pharmacists. Pharmacists are a very interesting bunch. I'm telling you, we are so interesting.
Like how?
Oh, I don't want to get into it. I don't want to get into it. We are such an interesting group. Like, if you want to lead other pharmacists, there's finesse. You almost have to learn the art of being FBI, common sense, and finessing people. Because the way you deliver the feedback has to be in a certain way in order for what you are saying to be received, how you want it to be received. And people can revolt just because they can. Like, they'll
What are you talking about?
Oh, no. Leading other pharmacists, and the biggest learning curve in leading other pharmacists is that just because you ask pharmacists, or you think, like, we went to a meeting and we said, okay, for heparin protocols, this is what we're going to do, 100% of the department is going to do that. No. There's the other pharmacists that think...
The first reaction that most pharmacists will give to anything new is...
Why do we need to do that?
Yeah, no.
We were doing great when we were checking APTTs 10 million times a day. Why do we need to switch to factor 10A? That doesn't make sense. No. That doesn't make any sense. But that's...
You're right. I see what you're saying. You do have to come in with like a book of research.
You
know exactly what they're going to ask you, and you've already had the prepared answers for all of them.
You better be prepared to make your case.
Yeah, that's what you mean by FBI.
Yeah. Because you have to investigate. You have to investigate what's the right angle to engage with that.
Right angle, yeah. How do I change these people's minds? Yeah.
It's not enough that you send an email to say, next week we're going live with some new pumps, X, Y, and Z. There's going to be 10,000 emails in your inbox asking you, well, who educated the nurse? Did you tell the nurses how to calibrate the pump? Do the nurses know the guardrails? Do they have a listing? Is there a pocketbook? Is there a guide?
You know what? I would say one time I had recommended to do like our diabetes educator lab. This was a long time ago. And I was like, hey, maybe pharmacy and dietitian can come together, and maybe we can create some sort of service. And I immediately did that, and everybody came at me like, okay, well, what are we going to educate? Like, how far are we going to educate them? Like, you know, am I going to have to show them how to give injections? And it was just like nonstop questions. And I was like, guys, like, this is our service and protocol. We can make it whatever we want, you know? But you're immediately receiving just a lot of, I don't know, pushback.
Yeah, and being comfortable, like, the difficult thing or the lesson is that if you are in it and you are in it to make change and you want to implement change and you want to lead things, you have got to start becoming very, very comfortable with getting a lot of static back. It's not a judgment on you, because my visceral response is like, they're just telling me that I don't know what I'm talking about. Right? But through effective mentorship, I learned that no, they just want you to come correct. So you need to go back and come with all of this research. You're going to pilot it first, because we're going to learn from the pilot before we send this system-wide. And that's where like a lot of my process design and implementation skills came from, because where I was, those pharmacists were not into just, this is what we're doing because it makes sense, or we're going to change this in the computer. We have to try it on one unit first, learn from that, and then, but they love that. Like, they love that gradual rollout. Yeah. And so it's not you, it's just how pharmacists are wired. We like things to be error-proof. And
I know. Which is weird to me, because I'm like, we can change it.
We can,
it's not a permanent thing.
We can, but like in that that moment, think about it, as a pharmacist, 100% of the time, not 99.99, 100% of the time, it has to be right. So when you come to us with like, we're going to change it, everyone's mind goes to the dark place of, that's a patient safety concern. We're trusting the nurses to do it? No, we can't relinquish that control.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like what that 2019 phase of my career was, like just learning how to lead and understanding that like my decision and choices to say that I'm gonna step up to lead pharmacist and lead technician, it's going to have some static and I need to leave work and not take any of that at home with me. Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah. Well, 2020 was the pandemic, and I worked in a hospital during the pandemic. And the lesson that I learned from it, and I hope that you guys don't, it doesn't bum everybody out too much, but sometimes healthcare is traumatic. I don't think that people tell you that, and it's like the longer you work, you're like, oh, this is traumatizing. The pandemic was very traumatizing for many of us, but even before the pandemic, there are moments, especially if you guys work in oncology, in places where it's really heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. I don't think like humans are supposed to see some of those things that you see sometimes. I don't think that you're supposed to see somebody suffering that much.
I think it's when you're early in your career, it's harder. I think
it builds though.
Does it? Like in what way?
It builds.
In what way? Like how do you mean?
Like I don't know if I can see another 38-year-old who is dying because they can't stop drinking.
Yeah. I know.
I'm like, what? Yeah. You're 38. Or like, you know, a young person who comes in for heart failure exacerbation and they weren't supposed to die, but they did. Yeah. I work in a hospital setting, so there's a lot of deaths. And this is why I also don't go into the ED. Like, I don't like working in the ED, and I don't like ICU like people, and I know there's so many guys back there.
Jimmy, you're like, hey, hold on a second.
I don't know if I can do that. Yeah. So, for the pandemic, and I don't know if some of you guys remember the pandemic, but in the beginning of the pandemic, we didn't know how to treat some of our patients. That was really scary. The fact that they didn't have any family members in the hospital, they died alone. Yeah. That was so traumatic. I know. And I'm a pharmacist, like I don't even know what a nurse would have to go through. But I remember when we had our first remdesivir, we had like 4 or 5 bottles, and it was like, hey, can we start remdesivir on this patient? They're like, well, she's old, she may not make it. We should give it to a younger patient who had a better chance. Like, how can you make that decision? Like, it gives me chills thinking about the stuff that I saw and witnessed. Yeah. It was scary. And then, you know, as we kind of gone through all of that and discovered what the right treatments were, we also went into, and the other lesson that I learned is that healthcare is extremely brittle. And we are kind of in a weird industry where the first time I recognized that healthcare needs sick people to make money is a really weird idea. Like, what is this? I know. It was very scary. We were letting a lot of people leave the hospital because we were thinking that we're going to be filled up with COVID patients, which ended up happening, but like months after we've done that. And we started getting furloughed because there was nobody in the hospital. And I was like, oh, right, we need sick people to keep our business going. Oh. And it's still like, it scares me. But another story that I want to share too is we were going through a shortage, like a physician shortage. And then, so at the time I was working in the private sector, and they had to bring in clinic doctors, outpatient doctors. Some of these ambulatory care doctors have not worked in the hospital for years. I remember I had this meningitis patient. It was, I mean, he came in with like altered mental status. We didn't know what was going on. I'm trying to get a hold of this doctor because there's like maybe a fever, maybe not. He's getting worse, whatever. This patient ended up, they were thinking it's meningitis, and he's on just one antibiotic, ceftriaxone, and you guys remember the guidelines.
What is happening? I have a lot of questions.
We tend to do empiric therapy. We tend to give like 4 or 5.
It's a cocktail until we know what it is. Until we know what it is.
I remember being in rounds with this physician who's worked in the outpatient side for years, and I was like, hey, we need to change it, or we need to add vancomycin to ceftriaxone, maybe ampicillin, like, what about valcyclovir? And the doctor's like, you're right, let's change ceftriaxone over to vancomycin. And I was like, no, incorrect. No, we have to add on, you need to get infectious disease on the case. And the most heartbreaking thing is that the patient passed away, and I don't know if he would have passed anyways, or, and those things like haunt me sometimes, because I'm like, oh my God, this is so scary. So that's what I mean when I say healthcare can be really traumatizing, because you're dealing with death sometimes, mortality. But the other lesson I want to make sure you guys take on with you is that healthcare is brittle, but the people who work in healthcare are some of the strongest, most resilient people that I've ever met.
Preach.
When the pandemic happened, people stepped up.
Yes.
Like, it was some of the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Like, I remember sitting in my office, and this pulmonary critical care doctor, he heard a sound and just started running towards the unit, and he was like, oh, my brother's mom, or my brother-in-law's mom is in that room, or something like that, like, it was personal for a lot of these people, and they stepped up for their community.
100%.
I've never seen a vaccine clinic where everybody was just working together so seamlessly. I worked at a vaccine clinic where military people were giving shots. I was like, where am I? But then I look into the tent, and there are pharmacists drawing up vaccines for the community. Like, we showed up.
Yes.
And I do not want to lose that. Healthcare is scary and it's brittle, but the people that are you guys that are taking care of patients, those are true heroes. Stepping up and saying, you know what, I'm not married, or I live alone, I can take care of the COVID unit, let the people with the family do something else. That was phenomenal.
It really was. Yeah. I can't add any more to that, because it's completely true. I was in jail, literally. I was in my house, could not leave because of my health issues. I was sequestered very early, before the country shut down. My nephrologist called and was like, do not leave the house. We don't know what's going on, don't leave the house. So I was working remotely, verifying orders remotely, learning about what was happening at the hospital through the emails and things that were being exchanged, but it's exactly what you were saying. Some of the ICU pharmacists and the ED, the pharmacists were literally deployed to, in my hospital, pharmacists were some of the first people in the emergency room that were actually telling people everybody needs to wear a mask. They were going to the emergency, the multidisciplinary emergency meetings every day and telling people there, and I remember this so clearly, where she's in that meeting and she's just saying, we need to wear a mask. We have a respiratory disease that we don't know how to treat. Why aren't we wearing masks, right? Pharmacists were doing that at my hospital, and it's like when vaccination started, the tents outside and all that stuff.
Your husband worked at CVS then. Shout out to all the community pharmacists.
All the community pharmacists. My husband was they worked he was losing weight. That essentially ushered his exit out of community, but we literally put a laundry hamper downstairs. He would literally just come upstairs in his boxers. Everything you wear out, he'll take everything off and leave it. And no, I'm not. Oh my God, that is not what's happening. He was actually deathly afraid to come near me because he was just scared that he was going to make me sick. Think about it, we're watching the news, people that are immunely compromised, or the folks that are saying that they don't have a shot against this. And for 8 months, my husband and I are sleeping in different rooms.
Oh.
Right? He would come from work, we're sitting across from each other watching TV, he would go in the other room and I'll go in the other, but 8 months. You understand? And my kidney transplant came in during COVID, right? So it's 2020, right? So 2020 was super interesting, but it was just such a crazy time for us because he was working 1,000,000 hours. We were not touching each other. We were just he was so scared that he was gonna make me sick, and everything we were seeing on the news was if I caught this, I would die.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think pharmacists had to make a lot of sacrifices. So, do not take lightly what you're doing, because pharmacists, like I know sometimes we don't get enough credit, but what we like if we weren't around, everybody would be screwed. Like y'all screwed.
No, but seriously.
Yeah.
No, but
What about
seriously.
2021?
Oh
I like this one. She put coming out as an entrepreneur.
It really felt like a coming out for me because so to understand like why 2021 was such a big deal for me, I have to give a little background because Resi Prep and the way Resi Prep came to exist, it was like my little pet passion project and my little secret. I didn't talk to anyone about it. Only people that went to my school. Shout out to University of Maryland Eastern Shore. Only people who went to my school knew that I helped people prepare for residency application, and I loved it that way. I loved that I was operating in the shadows, and they would tell some of their friends at Xavier, some of their friends at Howard, some of their friends at Maryland, and one or two other people outside of that circle would reach out and I would help them.
Yeah.
And then like in 2021, I decided like I'm going to post about what I do on LinkedIn. I'm going to talk about it. I drafted that post and it was in draft mode for over 3 weeks. I literally couldn't sleep out over the fear of doing it. I was so scared.
What are you scared about?
Well, think about it. Pharmacy is a profession that's all about we are the expert. It's a profession about experts.
Okay.
And I just graduated from pharmacy school 3-4 years ago at that point. Like, what am I an expert of? That's what's going through my mind. And also, like, do I know this process well enough to be, like, saying and putting it out there that I help students secure residencies? Like, there was a lot of lack of confidence associated with what I was doing, where it made it that I didn't talk about it or see it as a business. But then I posted on LinkedIn, and the response that I got back from that blew me away because the response was actually the opposite. It was people actually asking me, you do that, that's so cool, let me know if I can be a guest speaker. You do that, that's so cool, let me know how I can support. I didn't expect that. I thought that like the comments were just gonna be like, what do you know about that? Hey, get out of here. Exactly. So the lesson with 2021 and that risk of doing that and putting Resi Prep out there that year, think about the thing that scares you. And I posted this again this week about this event we're having. Think about the thing that scares you, do that thing. Because you don't know like what's on the other side of that fear. That moment has led to so many wonderful experiences and an opportunity to have relationship with so many amazing people around this country that I cannot even imagine now how my professional life would be without Resi Prep.
Well, I do remember when we first started our podcast, and you had a hard time saying that you're an entrepreneur.
I know.
You're like, am I one? I'm like, no, are you?
I still don't see myself as like entrepreneur.
Is that a
like,
scary title?
It is.
It's actually a really scary title for me. Like, I mean, I think that I have a friend, Ling, here, shout out to Ling, who's known me since pharmacy school, and I don't think that she knew that this was something that I would be interested in. Like,
why do they do that? I'm so curious. Like, why?
Well,
Why are we so like?
I mean, we do have an episode on this.
We but up until this point, like, I want to get over it.
Are you okay? So if you walk into a room, do you say a founder? Because you are.
I don't.
You founded many things.
I
You
know.
found so many things.
It's just like I found out many things.
You're like a startup. Like you're a startup founder.
I am, but
Isn't that weird?
I
mean, it's not weird, but it's weird that you don't own it. It's what's weird.
I know. I don't know. I cannot explain it.
But it's really hard for me to go into a space and be like, oh yeah, I'm a podcast host. Like, it's weird for me. It's kind of scary. But I'm like, I'm a pharmacist.
Me too. Me too. It's like my
That is not
dad.
scary. But
Yeah.
the thing that
That's like fulfilling for
yeah,
us. Like
is
being
so
a startup,
cool.
like doing startup and like being in a
But,
tech
like,
space, I'm
She's a
so
tech
excited.
founder.
Like I'm so excited to be in that space. Like
You
but
won.
I
What
don't-
did you win?
I don't talk about it.
Yeah, tell him.
I-
Tell him.
I
Look
want-
at the camera right there.
I want a few
There's
things.
three.
That's all.
How much?
It's just I'm competing for funding and winning. That's
But the
all.
thing is, like, not a lot of tech founders are able to do this, and it's like phenomenal that you have. And like pharmacists that are sitting in this room need to know that it's possible.
It is.
But that's why you need to share that story.
It's
Can you tell them how much you win? Can you tell them?
There are a few pitch competitions that I've won, but like the largest one that I've won is like $25,000. So it's just like, but it helps because that's so much money, and now I've made it into Techstars, and I think by the time this comes out, that announcement would be made.
Tell them what Techstars is, though.
Techstars is like this incredibly competitive accelerator program for tech founders, and you get like $120,000 seed money to actually work on your idea. So it's
What the heck?
I know
And it's weird because you're so like that is already successful to me.
oh wow, thank
It
you.
is like I don't know that many people who's able to get that kind of seed money
Yeah.
right off the bat even before the project even
I
launched.
know I don't even have a minimum viable product yet, but with this money, hopefully I have a minimum viable product that I can actually start engaging with venture capitalists, because I think the platform has the potential to eliminate prior authorizations as a barrier to medication access. So
That's wild.
we're hopeful. That's all.
I love that.
Thank
I'm
you.
proud of you.
I don't know why you put me on so hard for it.
Because it's my podcast. I get to do
I
whatever
do
I
what
want.
I want.
But also sometimes I like to squeeze like the good stuff out of Saley so that I can make them into reels. Truly. That's what it is. Are we done? Is it my turn?
That is it. 2022.
2022 for me.
I love this story. Go ahead.
Okay, well, I got a career coach because at this point, I'm like, well, I'm almost in 10 years of practice and I don't know where to go after. I looked at my managers and I looked at the people in that corporate ladder and I'm like, I don't know if that's my path. And I'm like, I think I might be miserable if I do that. I mean, I don't know, obviously, but it seems like it's a miserable thing. So I got a career coach. And she was like, you need to write on LinkedIn. I'm like, what do I write? And she's like, I don't know, I'll just write something. All right. I'm like, okay. And so I started writing about transitions of care. And it was like 2 months in, and I wrote this post, and it went viral on LinkedIn.
Blew up.
And I think like in terms of virality, it's like on the scale of virality, it's not that much. But for me, it was crazy. So
especially when you're just starting out too.
especially like 2 months in, I'm like, what is this?
Yeah.
And so I think overall, like the post impression I got was like 600K impressions with thousands of shares and comments, and it was crazy. And then LinkedIn took that post and then featured it in one of their news thingamajiggy that they did, and I was like, this is too much. I told you this, but I kind of had a mental breakdown a little bit, and I was like, this is too much. I couldn't do it. And I also learned, I think that lesson for me is that sometimes virality is just virality and it doesn't get you anywhere.
Yeah.
What gets you somewhere is the consistency of doing the things that you want to do.
100%.
Sometimes virality will lead you somewhere great, but it led me to a panic attack and a meltdown, okay? Like, I did not want it. We kind of went a little bit viral on YouTube, and I was like, no, not again, please.
I think we're going viral on YouTube. Why is it being viewed so much? I was like, oh, I've never had any experience with going viral. This is cool.
Yeah, it was not fun.
This is cool. And she was like freaking
I
out.
do not like it because it's just too much attention, and oftentimes it doesn't get you where you want to go.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. Like I remember when you talked about this in the on one of our episodes. It's like knowing, like everybody wants to go viral, but no one really talks about like how do you capitalize on that moment when it hits. And what happens is when you're preparing a reel, a post, or you're doing a story. I think I tell you this, like, I'm like, Henry's like my biggest hater. Henry's my husband. I was like, he's like my biggest social media hater. Every time I'm doing a reel, and like, I'm like, yep, this is the one. This is the one.
We
I'm gonna
always
blow
do
up.
that,
This is
yeah.
gonna go viral. And he's like, yep, just like the last one. But it's just, he's such a hater. And I'm just kind of like, the day I blow up, I'm just gonna put it in his face, but I'm not gonna be ready because every single one I post, I think this is the one. This is the one that's gonna go viral. And it's like 3 likes. I'm like, oh.
It's weird because the things that you think will do well don't do well.
No.
But then the things that you're like, oh, whatever. Because legitimately that YouTube reel that I put that has like 400 something thousand views or whatever on YouTube, I literally was like, I made yours and then I made mine and I'm like, I don't know, whatever, blah, blah, here you go. And then it was like blowing up, like, this is annoying. But also,
it's cool, like you're not ready for it, and that's the challenge because when it does happen, you're like, oh, then I imagine, since I've never gone viral, I imagine that you're always feeling pressured, like I have to continue to make, or I have to outdo, you know what I mean? So
it's too much.
I like aspiring to going viral and just nothing popping up.
Oh.
That's
Be careful what you wish for, is what I'm gonna say.
Look, the party's here, y'all.
Look at that man in the back. All right.
Oh my gosh, 2023 for me is my year of liberation. It's my year of liberation because after what was a great career, I was AmCare program manager. I'd done some really meaningful work at this hospital in establishing a very successful, robust ambulatory care service. I'd asked for a promotion a few times and denied. I leave for maternity leave, and when I come back from maternity leave, there is a new manager, a supervisor, system-wide supervisor for AmCare services that's been hired to manage my area. Except I need to train this supervisor.
Wait, so the job that you had wanted and had been working hard to get was just hired by somebody else? Were they from outside? Oh, okay.
Internal.
Oh.
Yeah, they give it to her. And then they wanted me to train her so she can, and I remember specifically asking, oh, okay, so you want me to train her so she can oversee my area? And he goes, yeah, pretty much. I was like, okay, strike one. Strike two, I came and directly asked, what are the opportunities for vertical advancement here? Because I've been ClinSpec here now for 4 years. I'm interested in what's next. We have an opportunity to expand med management system-wide, and I want to lead that. Well, now for the next 3 years. And I said to him, I was like, thank you for the transparency, because in 3 years, I definitely don't see myself being a ClinSpec and not leading an area. So I went home, and I drafted an email, and it was, the subject was, time for a monumental pivot. And all of my friends that I emailed, they were like, why are you so extra? You could just say, I'm looking for a job. Like, if your subject just said that, we would have opened it still. But this ended up resulting in me resigning exactly 2 weeks later and pivoting to Howard University for a fellowship.
Wow.
One of, by far today, the best professional decisions I've made. And I remember posting on LinkedIn, the post was, I'm taking a step back for a leap forward. And it ended up...
You have good titles.
Oh, thanks.
Don't catch me.
I'm still not going viral, though. I'm still not going viral, even with the good title, right?
Yep.
But it's exactly how I felt at the time. I was blessed to have a very supportive spouse who said, he's a baby right now. Whether you decide for school or training again, it's gonna be okay. My mom is here, you're gonna have the support. But if you're thinking that it's time to do something radical, this is the time to do it, and we will support it. And so I did that fellowship at Howard University that's now landed me in literally my dream role, working with incarcerated individuals. It's meaningful.
Well, you're a director.
I'm a director.
Why do you not say these things?
You just want me on the spot all the time. That's why I don't say it.
I just want to make sure the audience knows what you're talking about.
Yeah, but like, it's also another goal. Like, I wanted to become a director before 40, and I've accomplished that. And, you know, like, it's just, thank you. But the lesson there is it's okay to reinvent. And sometimes like that reinvention of yourself may require like a step back, like a pause button. Maybe it's a break from work completely if your support system allows it. But I never was interested in a fellowship. And I think when I graduated, the fellowship that I did not exist at that time. Like clinical fellowships were not things that we talked about then. But to have had that opportunity and to be somewhere like Howard University, it was transformative for me mentally because I was learning from some of the most brilliant Black minds in the country, something that was very comforting for me, and the psychological safety I experienced at Howard was something very new. It's a very special place in that way. Being at Howard and the relationships that I've made there, and some of these people and some of the articles that I review in my care practice and how I was designing services, now I was able to sit in their office and have them teach me how to do different things. But the lesson is like, do not, like if the thought is crossing your mind that it's time for a change, don't ignore it. It could really be valid. And the PharmD allows it. I think like we get stuck in thinking that like, because I've done a residency, I'm stuck in the clinical track, and that's not true. But the PharmD really does give you a lot of power and flexibility to say like, you know what? I've done that was cool. I've done ED, I've done crit care, I've done internal medicine transitional care, I've done care. Now I'm in an administrative role. Like my career is not even 10 years old yet.
Yeah.
Right? So don't be afraid to experiment with all of the different things that are possible.
But also, I would say, I mean, this is why our podcast is really important, because sometimes you look around you and you see the people that's been in the same role for 20 years and you feel like that's the only option.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Because it's just a lot of people around that have had their roles for a very long time. And maybe that's a great fit for them. Yeah. But for me, like, every time there was an opening for something new, I'd get curious. Like, we got an ED pharmacist. I was like, I want to come and hang out with you. What do you guys do here? What goes on over here? Oh, that's really cool. You guys go to coach strokes, geriatric trauma. What happens in there? What is this TPA business? What can I learn? And then that nosiness, when that pharmacist resigned, guess who was drafted to cover the ED? The nosy person that was all up in the business, because I was the only person who knew anything about what Addie did in the ED. Same thing with crit care, because I'm like, patients are transitioning from the ED majority of the time. They go over there, I was like, I give up crit care during residency for care, but I guess I can learn what you guys do here for how the patients got. That person leaves, I'm drafted to cover there as well. But staying open and pivot is, it could be very good for your career.
Career can be really just like colorful, and there's so many opportunities. It's just everything.
Everything's all over.
Well, I think that was 2023.
Woo.
And present day. What did you learn?
Not present day.
Today. This exact moment. 2024. I mean, it's almost the end of 2024.
It's almost the end of 2024.
What are your final thoughts?
I don't know. This year tested me, right? Talked about it earlier. If you're listening to this episode, you know this year I suffered great loss personally that really did knock me off my axis. My mom was a huge part of my life and my support and my motivation. Like everything that I know about how to be a strong, driven, ambitious woman, I learned that from my mom. Growing up in a country where educating girls was forbidden, her dad made a very difficult decision to educate her, and she was the only educated girl in all of her siblings because she bugged her dad to death, and he did it for her. But that choice that her dad made for her ended up making her a mentor to so many other women in my home country of Guinea, and then to me, because she modeled like, you can have a family, you can work, you can pursue all of those different things. So losing her this year to ovarian cancer was hard, and I considered like completely stepping away from everything, but the gift of hospice, right? The gift of preparing ourselves for that loss was that she prepared us for it. And she talked a lot about this is going to be hard, but you're going to be okay. And tonight was something I talked to her about, like how I wanted to do this. And after this today, I won't get to call her to tell her how it went. And so it's hard. But it was also a really great year. I became a director.
There's a lot.
Yeah, but it was a very mixed year with some amazing things happening, and then this one hard thing that happened, and I'm just determined to not let.
Is there a lesson in it? Maybe not. Sometimes there's no lesson.
I don't know. Life is hard, but I've done really hard things, and I think this is just one more hard thing I have to do, and I think that my faith teaches me that there's purpose in it. It was hard. It wasn't an easy transition. It was a difficult transition for her, and I don't want that for her. She had suffered enough. Mm-hmm. And my faith kind of teaches me that there's purpose in everything. I have to trust and pay attention to recognize the purpose in that.
Well, I would say, and that reminds me of that story that I've told before, where before I left my last job, I created this service and they gave me $50 to spend on something. And I bought a microphone, not legitimately, not knowing that we were going to do this. How could I have known that, maybe 1.5 years later, I would be here with a microphone? Yeah. And in front of a live audience. I think that sometimes you just don't know, but, deep down, you know? You know something. Yeah. There's something about you, and one thing I want to make sure that we leave today is that, some things don't happen by accident, and the fact that we are here, you and I are here, it's not because, we're doing it because of the money or anything, it's because we fully want to do this. God, no. But I want everybody to know that there's something special, unique in every single one of you that will make you stand out from the person sitting next to you. 100%. I know that when I show up to pharmacy, I'm not going to be the smart person knowing all the guidelines and stuff. But I am the person that is passionate enough to have a show like this, learn about all this technology that maybe other pharmacists may not know.
They definitely don't know.
One day, one of these organizations will be like, hey, we need somebody that knows this stuff. And I'm like, oh, me, I don't know. Yeah. But there are things that, are not, I brought that microphone, why did I do it? I just knew there's something about it. So just don't forget that there's something in each of us that will make you stand out, and it will make you be the reason why you're going to succeed even further than you thought if you take the regular traditional path.
Exactly, and it may not be PharmD related.
It's not.
I really want you to wrap your mind around the possibility that the other thing that you're hesitant or scared to try has nothing to do with the PharmD. Your balloon decoration business, right? I think that that's such a cool and creative thing that you're doing, because I'm oh, you could have transformed this whole room, if we knew that you did that. But don't let go of it. Oh, because now I'm a PharmD, I can't also do that. They can coexist together beautifully. There are PharmD students.
And you can make it related to each other.
You can.
Yeah.
You can.
So don't forget. But I think that's the 10 years.
Oh my God.
Of pharmacy.
We're
all the lessons that we've learned. I know, it was really crazy when I was 2014. Oh my God, I graduated 2014.
We were talking about our now price today, right? When did you take it? Oh, when did you take it? Oh, and Natalie was oh, I did 2014. It's yeah, 2014. I was I did it in 2016. I did a few years after you guys.
Thank you so much for listening. If this episode speaks to you and you think that others may benefit from hearing our stories, send this episode to them. This is how we will reach even more people.
Yes. The episode is available on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. or wherever you get your podcast. Please like, share, and subscribe. I'm on my belly, rolling on the floor, at your feet, begging. Please, please. All of our socials get linked in the show's description, so you can follow us individually, but also the show's page to help improve our reach. Until next time, right?
Don't forget.
Don't forget, we got this. I can't believe we did it. Oh my God. Did you get your question?
It was exactly at 8:02. We did it.
Oh
We made it on
my
time.
gosh,
Baby.
Were there any questions, comments, concerns, straight up objections? We'll take them all.
Yeah. Anything?
Anything?
Don't be afraid.
Don't
You
be
know what?
shy.
Maybe people are shy. Do you want me to turn off the cameras?
No.
Oh.
Wonderful. I love the honesty. I love the emotion. I love the passion. And I like it being pharmacy related. That just hit every button. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming. We appreciate that. Thank you.
Come on, guys. Questions?
Don't be shy. It won't get you anything. Don't be shy.
Well, we can do.
Well, one of you talks about your personal life and the other one doesn't.
I don't know.
Well, you know, the interesting, that's a good question, because the interesting about social media, because we do put this on social media, and I think there's a boundary that you have to put, that you have to place on social media.
Yeah.
I have a boundary where I don't talk about my personal life.
Yeah.
It's too scary, and I don't want anybody to like be able to criticize it or even know anything about it.
Good for you.
So I think that's my hard line.
Good for you.
The people who actually know who I am are the people that talk to me.
Yeah.
Like Barry. Barry talks to me.
I understand. I wanted you to say that because that's a very important point to make.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for me, I talk openly because I feel like it's part of like the journey I've had to go through online. For a very long time, I wasn't very open about some of the things, and I have yet to actually post about my mom passing. And I feel like that's gonna be like that thing that I protect to go through personally and on my own. But I've never posted a picture of her to talk about what I feel, even on the days where I miss her the most. And that's social media is usually where I go to dump all my emotion, but I can completely understand and respect that.
But I would encourage you to do so because she taught you some lessons that I think other people will want to learn.
Yeah.
Okay, and I think it's important. And it's also important for you to talk about your family.
Yeah.
And that was very good because so many people in pharmacy have families.
Yeah.
I guess we all do somewhat.
Thank you.
But
think that's why-
some of us are single,
Yeah.
or maybe not single, or just, we might need to know what to do.
We are not, okay, we are not a relationship podcast. We are not a relationship podcast.
Listen, I just told you that my husband is in prison by being married to me. I am not the relationship expert or giving advice on relationships. I think I
We've been
got
talking about some
very
random things lately. So our next episode is going to be on Martha Stewart.
I
So
know.
random.
That's my new girl boss inspiration.
And I
wanna
think the
try
one that we
that.
recorded earlier today.
Snoop Dogg in too.
Don't forget to squeeze Snoop Dogg in. Did you watch the documentary?
Oh yeah.
I know it was good. I feel like it was very enlightening. You gotta listen to the next episode.
Check it out. It's available tomorrow. I still need to upload it.
Oh, great. It's available tomorrow, but it's not
I need to
uploaded
upload it
to the
tonight. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Any other
Okay,
questions?
Well, we can do a little quick meet and greet. So,
Oh yeah, we're gonna mingle.
okay, we're gonna minimize
The lights and everything else. I can't thank you guys enough.
Thank you so much for watching our first live episode recording. I know that audio was not ideal, but you know what? You live and you learn, and I can't believe we made this particular dream come true. We have so many more fun ideas for 2025, so please stay tuned, and we're hoping to do even more live episodes like this in the future. For those of you who've been with us throughout this entire journey, we thank you so much for your support. If you find this episode interesting or, would benefit somebody, please send this episode their way so that we can grow our channel and we can spread the love, I guess. And don't forget that everything we do, our episodes will be available on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. So please rate, follow, subscribe, rate, do all the things for us. We really, really appreciate you doing all of that. We're hoping to grow this channel to be an amazing show, something that's worth your time to listen to and worth your time to support. So we thank you so much for you trusting in us. And until next time, do not forget it. You got this. Have a good beginning of 2025, everybody.